Hello, why do we have trees? We have trees because overall the identity of space, Allah, is in demonstrating we have leverage overall up, ground up. We have leverage overall right to left, physically. Overall left to right, physically. Ground, overall to other overall leverage than us. The Trinity is in demonstration of itself always. Overall down, we have no control over ourselves. We have no leverage. Because the Trinity, excuse me, I always rush on to here, right? Because I'm before I can get to here, I want to do this with the proper treatment. I can't even get to my thing because there's people pretending. There were people that were directed to my presence, inescapably, where you're growing up, and then those narratives are now with adults. Look, I'm not a big guy. I'm supposed to fight. They're with simultaneously fake care, fake aggression. They hear you're a boxer. Boom. You know what I'm saying? They broke my career too because with criminal justice. This is Hartford, Connecticut is critical. Weathersfield, Connecticut is critical to what all modern nations lost to, because before all modern nations, a semi-ancient criminal enterprise took over criminal campus Marcius, spelled with a C, not a T. That revealed the republic for which we stand, this ancient value, as a quality of fact, treatment nature that hasn't been since. So hasn't been with one body capable of defending their fact, treatment nature roles in us at the same time. As victims, but as victim predators. As victims maintained, because this is space maintained, now online maintained, motivated. Original stage, they had laws before our founders were here. They had internation. The face of England here was the internation campus Marcius group, criminally re-engineered, space maintaining the sciences to roles with its ill fact treatment justifications, defenses of that as breaching method using humans fact treatment nature's value relationship. Value nature relationship to itself, inherently, actively, and progressively, non-stop. Because of the nature of the identity's perfect value progression, the identity of space, the identity of this is science. This is before the Quran, before Jesus was even born. Jesus Christ is about this. It's about radical correlation. Is about the nature that is the value of space itself, progressively, all parts of itself, as value gained here or as value for. That's why it's about what forces it from here. If it's not science, always real, which is before the finite, then as the value of the finite. What is the finite? The smallest detail. The smallest body of value, what makes its magic, what makes it work with the body of the identity of space, what makes this engineering connected. That order before that finite, then all the smallest details, smaller than we can see, smaller than we can see anyway. Before, then as that value. That's how we can see it, because we can see it because that value is also here. The value of our correlation nature itself in evidence. So we have victims of the media because every modern nation was raised. Victim predators, areas and states in collusion. Since before our founders' birth, they even took our founders to defend it. And made it forced, like it's impersonal. If you note it, excuse me, if you know the glorification of our founders forced how they didn't have free speech even after the Constitutional Convention, how they were forced to another nature, speech and sensibilities, because everyone was, and how they were. Because this was engineered, even against Native Americans first. But no one understood because they were blaming on others because they were being forced to multi-front by fake care and by fake aggression and murder, fake murder intended for theater, and by even landscape theater. So I want to have a good movie and stuff like that, have some experts do it sometime. But before that, need to have the real life experts standing. There's not one, because everyone's a victim, but it's specifically how a victim predator for areas. So just like we need to look at poverty, and I'm not poverty. That's physical delusion, because it's a value nature system that never reaches out and is using that as an excuse. To be the war on poverty, you have to be revolution. You have to be what admits that those are not means. You have to be a nature that admits to an education that's real. Because this was set up to be, they knew this nature of one, all positions and jobs with it, tied to database. They had database, that's how they upkept slavery. The slavery of our founders, in other words. Everyone was roles, forced to divide and conquer, invest what the original ancients had known was positive value by the identity of space one way and not the other, which is us understanding that value is our nature alone, not color. And when it comes to that, in other words, the original criminal enterprises had been contained because the ancients had originally understood how to cause evolution. And they couldn't believe that anyone would try to take away what would cause evolution as the value of our ability for the control over our relationship to the nature of positive beyond our control, and of the nature of negative beyond our control. It's not money that locked people in people stacking into convictions within as pseudosciences and defenses of that forced, and convictions forced by that on others, needing to explain correlation nature, but not getting the means to offensively. So they have each person attached to people in other classes and stuff and tied that are going to, through life, pretend they knew them in the past. Tied to brackets, especially in my case, because this is in my not a legal case, but this is going to be a legal case because WFSB was told to fake both sides of news and to sequence shift and to fake medical information. I never had a doctor as a kid, a psychologist. They're also they're making fake Facebook pages pretending to be me through time to cover up their life progressions, because they had people who were in my grade growing up that had crimes with federal criminals and with agencies and their family members and interbranch ones and criminal justice cliques, people people associated with the state judicial branch office, people associated with the state prison offices off Franklin Avenue. And then when you just try to talk about simple reality, they get so mad and they start, because they got locked into they're tied to sex offenders, but it's much worse. There's a Lethe family with it. They're doctors. They have untimely deaths brought up the sex offenders, and even though they're already convicted, because it was one of the two brothers my age are with former police chiefs, police dispatcher's mother, associated with the fire department. They're one of the brothers, and both of them with police with the drugs and stuff that made untimely death. Tied to another one on Trinity campus. This is also the roles with all kinds of other retired and standing detectives, like a Dillon family, and one down the street. His detective, and other police in their department, like a Joe DeMoro, and others recorded and confessed involved through since they were kids with crimes with doctors. That and then them pretending that I had a relationship like a doctor, per recorded and confessed, tied and exploited. See, it was facilitated by a breaching method. So they only understand through lies and progressions, intercity through time. And when you try to tell, they pretend they have an identity as officers, or as federal agents, or as judges, but they're switching names, sequence shifting, tied to a proven sequence shift in the Ninth Circuit right before the Trade Center attack. It had been proven that the papers had been brought into the in hand delivered, time stamped on time in Manhattan, and for the case in the night before the panel of judges in the Ninth Circuit, right before the Trade Center attack, it was proven that they were shown papers that were time stamped again late to make it look late. But then that was proven. Then it took all that time to 2006. Part of that case that brought up with federal, all kinds of natures of federal criminals intercity who are tied to the illusion stacking with interbranch families, with criminal justice families, and with campus position ties, and unrealized ones. But to realize them, you have to be able to report what 3 branches of government have families, and what all the military have families already invested, needing to pretend they believe lies and delusions, put in databases, sequence shifts. Now, I only raised my voice one time in my life. It was right after my father's death too, because at the same time I knew I had to report. I had to take care of what they're doing they're doing a crime with the kids in my area, tied to the sex offenders and the other worst natures of crimes with it, with the principal sex offender just sentenced. I had called up to try to report that. I had been doing slow, but I knew it was juxtaposed natures of evil, because I had been to that school, and I know it's very subtle. You don't understand what they're doing, but I understand that no one's going to figure it out. You have to, in other words, they know it's the criminal, but they don't want to know any deeper or address that, because if they put something in words, then I'm going to be able to tell the other stuff. Otherwise, in other words, they're not being they're able to torture people by stacking fake evidences with crime methods in court, with criminal influences over courts, tied to their roles with lie progressions with that, already invested within as that nature, using campuses, pretending that is positive, that's pseudo-positive. And that is being maintained by worse recorded and confessed, tied to the principal sex offenders campus. And it was facilitated by minority parents through time. There's Justin Klavinskis, who confessed and recorded his wife, as my school did, involved with crimes with courts and with campuses of each age with the sex offenders cliques. I said I never had anything to do with her in my life. They also recorded and confessed that they have where they direct police to go up and just say things to people, like make loaded statements, or make halfway full confessions, demonstrations of crime rules, confessions too. Then people can't talk about reality because we have criminally foreign influence recorded, raised, interbranch families, people associated with the sensibilities, with the interreligious, all recorded in one nave with and as the investigators in the courts with and their family members recorded criminally foreign influenced victims, but victim predators through their needs to cover up lie progressions, and lie progression cover up natures, needing correlation natures, Trinity not discerned. Trinity's value-nature relationship to itself, not discerned, which is value before that and after that. That's why there's 5 pillars of Islam. That's why there are 5 values as nature, as the yin-yang. That's why there are 3 natures as value, as the yin-yang, as the Trinity. Lost course returns. The drop the force who learns. The finite. Al, value al, in Arabic is the definite article. Here's finite in the word definite. There are in English we have the definite and the indefinite. Just like there's an indefinite nature in Arabic. To communicate this right was the nature of correlation. Fact, treatment, nature. By as the value, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressively valuable to correlation nature, which is the ability to discern ratiocination, which is requiring a quality of fact treatment nature or premises treatment natures by sensibilities that are being prevented criminally by media recorded victims too. But to address this, the worst is the branches. So they have so specifically, is how their private police were recorded criminally foreign influenced and maintained needing lie progression and cover-ups too. A bunch of people recorded and confessed that a family through time. I never had anything to do with them. He non-verbally, the only time he ever walked by me, confirmed that he had crime rules with all kinds of natures of investigators associated with the Club Blue, and with people with the name Joe, and a Mark tied to a Mark Violet, and the people associated with the sex offender clique with my neighbor are the one tied to the police, but then they said Phil Cololo was also. That's what Bob Chase said. Because they had arrested me with lies and sequence shifts to hide also online rape threats against the youngest students in the school. They still hid that from the teachers. They still hid crimes with the courts and their drug cliques with the doctors and triages. Recorded also with a pattern interbranch where they threatened people not to make say anything up front. And then there's no conversation. Then they forge names and have a whole deep pretend at the time that they were in the presence of someone was other. They pretend things were recorded in conjunction with this while they're not following the mandate. That's why there was much worse recorded with into the principal sex offender and his reported arrest and recent sentencing. Also recorded and confessed involved with men and women with crimes with the kids of all various natures, with Enzo Fienzo, also recorded and confessed involved with election crimes, involved with the crimes with the people with the schools and the policing of the schools, abuses of family, attaching me and my family members to fake conversations, making me fight with a conversation that's fake because they're playing games on paper. They want where they're shifting line with they're not with the sex offender cliques because they're from huge drug cliques with these doctors, and they've been using them to keep the influence of people criminally foreign influenced as the people that are tied to the untimely deaths where you go to investigate that, as trade center investigators, homeland and foreign, international, originally and stayed, criminally foreign influenced. Now, who's this sick? Justin Levinsis says his wife his wife. She confirmed is involved with his and people tied to him confessions about interbranch and their police intercity with crimes with kids of all various natures 2 times tied to a cross automotive. And a seizure before I ever went to work there, no. Because this is all I care about, is the simple fact treatment racket that use color. Not because of just color, because this is our nature's relationship to ourselves, our constitution abridged. I could not believe how, I thought it was just because of that's why they made the confessions are important. Because the person is trying to understand that, so they need the people to confess that, like Tim O'Brien, Andy O'Brien, confessed and demonstrated recorded roles with crimes with evidence perception bodies into branch growing up, and with the military tied to them, and to the KKK themed, and crimes with the networks, with houses next to schools tied to those huge drug cliques of all different natures, and crime method with evidence perception by influences, areas and states maintain influence through internation breaching method, using human fact treatment nature's value nature relationship to itself, value nature relationship to itself, the Trinity, which comes back. Now there's the temporary bond as value, progressively, to matter, overall up. The temporary bond to matter, right to left, left to right, that we can use for leverage, for positive or value nature progression causes or negative value nature progression causes, per quality of fact treatment nature and system already revealed as where and how these other ones are going to continue to cause negative value nature progressions in acts, in natures, like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers. This is not, there are opinion natures blaming this on our nature itself. This is on the nature of ourself only because of a criminal enterprise, an archetypal criminal enterprise. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a criminal. This is what the Bible is about. This is what the Quran is about. But they're also about how they're going to stay within, as you rule guys, roles until you get the first part of the Old Testament, where all the sciences come together and teach about how and why the sciences share an identity. In the first part of the Quran, not one person defended the first part of the Quran in the first part of the Old Testament and or science, because that's about radical correlation when it's talking about being about science. It's about cipher too. It's not even debatable because the campuses were already criminally re-engineered. There's no free speech. Let just one teach. Each person is attached to fake database lies. WFSB is recorded and confessed involved with worse child predators than the recently reported principal sex offender. Also recorded and confessed involved with crimes with both ends of the street and with evidence reception bodies interbranch, maintain this way through also foreign. Also was his recorded and confessed crimes with and as families associated with crimes from the juxtaposition of overt criminal enterprises and of unrealized nation share with opinion natures through that, like with so I mentioned Hartford is not that, Hartford right between New York City and Boston, and Hartford and Wethersfield. George Washington had to meet here with the French general right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War to counter-extort what was already had the campuses Campus Marcias, criminally re-engineered campuses. Hospitals are on campuses. They have a triage relationship to people that you don't realize are associated with the theater of the arts. Of placements they took. This is against each age of fact treatment nature, simultaneously, victim predators. But To deal with Hazard's victim, we have to be able to report crime acts. They're not living acts reported. Tied to the confessions when I was young. The confessions were to pretend people are good that are going to come back and that have been tied to a game where they play a telephone game. It's also tied to medical corruption, how systemic this is, because there are police forms, interbranch, intermilitary, and internation, and with not just with prisons, but with every industry, with area, with systems, needing to cover up lie progressions tied to a database illusion stacking roles. Per what made slavery was tied to database internation monitored database relationships. Now they will come back if they found out someone was found to be had been speaking about building houses. Doesn't matter what color you were; they were all slaves. If you were found out speaking about building houses outside of internation monitored database relationships, they hurt you and your whole family. They made fear in layers so deep to tactically invest everyone blaming on others and on themselves, the actual causes of it. They were building a criminal insidiousness nature, which when the Mitt Romney and Barack Obama debate was about sanctions, this is about criminal insidiousness natures in relationship to needs to counter what is being blamed on others and on selves only, as the value of our Trinity maintained per sophistication before and as, but then still beyond this. Internation. You see. So they have people with the courts are not being allowed reported on because the police are already in collusion with them, with what is also manifest with what I don't even you'll be able to see how all kinds of crimes would have been prevented if you followed the reality, because they're also with child predators. There are retired and standing detectives, interbranch, foreign and domestic, police and families, overt criminal enterprise juxtaposed to orchestrated collusion with crime acts, like with an IO family recorded, with police that share the name McGee. 3 different police, different ones said that to my because he's also recording and confessed with women and men associated with crimes with kids through time, with interbranch families associated with Rocky Hill schools, distinctly, non-distinctly, Wethersfield schools, distinctly and non-distinctly, New Britain schools, but it's tied to also the corruption with the state judicial branch offices, town offices further, the libraries for systems further, placements with campuses further. There's a Gallucci family recorded and confessed involved with the child sex offender drug clique side of natures of crimes with the kids, and database hallucination stacked the crimes with the kids. And that's a relative of Johnny Duke, used to be in the north end of Hartford, Clay Bay, from the Olympics, heavyweight Olympic boxer. I don't know if he won a gold medal. I think he won a medal. I don't think it was a gold medal. But he's a criminal justice guy, though. See, he's with prisons. They're with database illusion stacking role, fact treatment nature roles. Where and how they worse than ever explain the breaching method using human fact treatment nature, fake sides, fake differences, blaming others, blaming selves, people stacking. See, pseudoscience is calling poverty what they have in offensive life progression cover-up needs preemptively and actively and inherently to blame on others and on themselves, on people's selves. Systemically, so the most evil is coming is of the private side. That's we have to understand our Trinity's value nature relationship to itself. That's where and how the value of this, as we'll see with the cartoons, was engineered as life progression cover-up natures needs as a value of our, as us as value as nature, as fact treatment nature. In other words, fact treatment nature is value, but value that is progressive as the forever nature is. It is either positive or negative onto itself, which is wherever it is, which is everywhere, which is as the phenomena of the source's relationship to its own course, so its own course that can only be, and it will only stay positive unto itself. That's why and how Lethe of Hades is forced. The value different, the distinct. That's how the simultaneously distinct, non-distinct relationship that Earth has to the rest of space, with it as Earth being closer to the greatest inherent volume, inherent nature of volume, of inherent nature, active nature, progressive nature, three natures, three states of one nature as the Trinity, of one identity's value nature relationship to itself, that nature as a Trinity. See, they're saying, so they're making jobs, all jobs, even jobs of states in areas originally pro what? Areas maintain sciences only for shared police. They're here fake sides. Fact treatment nature reliant upon fake sides to justify itself more and more and more, because that's the value of the campus that's not